All right, so today's deep dive is going to take us right into the heart of the April 2024 attacks on Israel. And you've brought us quite the collection here. Some news articles, some Turkish language analysis, even a Wikipedia page. It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
But that's what we're here for, right? Ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Let's connect the dots.
Okay, so this Turkish Wikipedia article throws us right into the thick of it, describing Iranian missile attacks on Israel April 13th and 14th, 2024.
Yeah.
It's wild to see this event, through sources from different parts of the world, don't you think?
It offers such a unique perspective, that's for sure. And I think what's really crucial to understand here is this wasn't just some isolated incident. This Wikipedia article really frames it within a broader conflict involving Hamas and Hezbollah, with Iran claiming that their actions were retaliation for an Israeli operation against Hezbollah.
And they weren't messing around. Over 200 ballistic missiles aimed at Israel with support from Hezbollah, even the Houthis all the way from Yemen. This was a coordinated attack, no doubt.
Oh, absolutely. It was a coordinated attack. And what's really interesting here is this article highlights the United States' immediate and really significant support for Israel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they deployed major military assets, warships like the USS Carney, the USS Arleigh Burke. It was a show of force.
Yeah.
And get this, it was the first wartime use of SM-3 missiles.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal. I mean, what kind of message do you think that sends deploying those missiles for the first time in this conflict? It makes you stop and think about the potential for escalation, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It wasn't just about defending Israel. It was a very clear signal to Iran and really to the world, I think, about just how committed the U.S. is to their allies.
And as with any conflict, there are always tragic consequences for civilians caught in the crossfire. And this Wikipedia article mentions a 7-year-old girl in Iraq who was seriously injured by shrapnel. It really hits home, the human cost of this conflict. This isn't about geopolitics. It's about a little girl who's now seriously hurt.
Absolutely. And sadly, she wasn't alone in the article. It mentions at least 31 people needing treatment for injuries or for anxiety from these attacks.
Yeah.
It's just a stark reminder, I think, of the real-world impact of these events.
And, beyond the immediate human cost, the attack also sent shockwaves through Iran's economy. Their currency, the real, plummeted against the dollar.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see kind of how these global events and these markets are all interconnected.
Yeah.
While Iran's economy took a hit, the article also notes that on the flip side, Israeli defense companies actually saw a surge in their stock prices.
Yeah, it's a grim reality, but it makes you think about the economic complexities of conflict.
It really does.
So we've established Iran launched this massive missile strike, but what led to this boiling point?
Well, that's where those Euronews articles that you shared come in. They provide like a really crucial piece of the puzzle by detailing the lead up to the attacks. They paint this picture of escalating tensions, almost like a tit for tat between Israel and Hezbollah in the months prior.
So it wasn't just this sudden out-of-the-blue attack, more like a pressure cooker situation.
Yeah, exactly. One of the Euronews articles actually drops a pretty shocking revelation. It claims that before the missile attacks, Israel was conducting covert operations targeting Hezbollah's communication infrastructure. Now, while Israel never officially acknowledged these operations, a former Mossad official is quoted in the article saying they were successful.
Successful, but definitely not without consequences, right? This same article goes on to claim that these covert operations resulted in civilian casualties. It mentions at least 2 children dead and other civilians connected to Hezbollah injured. It's a chilling reminder, I think, of the unintended consequences and the ethical tightrope that comes with this kind of warfare, even when it's covert.
Absolutely. And this complexity is further highlighted when we even look at the global response to the attacks. The Euronews articles do a good job of capturing the international outrage, with many countries condemning the violence. We're talking strong reactions from nations like Qatar, Egypt, even European powers like Turkey, Spain, Ireland, Norway, Germany, and France.
Wow. Yeah, it seems like the whole world was watching and most didn't like what they saw. It's interesting, though, that you mentioned the U.S. response being more complicated. What did you mean by that? Weren't they firmly in Israel's corner, given all the military support we just discussed?
Well, yes and no. While the U.S. certainly provided military backing, one Euronews article highlights Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit to Washington right in the middle of this escalating crisis. And let's just say things weren't exactly cordial.
I'll spill the tea. What went down?
The article hints at some real tension brewing beneath the surface of the U.S.-Israel relationship. The U.S., while supportive, was also expressing concern over how Israel was handling the situation. It seems even within this united front, there were disagreements and anxieties about the escalating conflict.
That's super interesting. So we have this global outcry against the violence, but also potentially some cracks appearing in one of the world's most important alliances. And then, of course, there's the economic fallout, which, let's be honest, is often the part that gets overlooked in the midst of all the political drama.
You're absolutely right, and that's where the analysis from TASAM, the Turkish think tank you sent, comes in. They provide a really sobering assessment of the economic impact on Israel.
And it's not pretty. According to TASAM, Israel's economy shrank by a staggering 19.4% in the last quarter of 2023 alone.
That's massive.
Yeah.
You're right. Those numbers often get lost in the headlines. But a contraction like that has huge real-world implications.
To put it mildly, and the Central Bank of Israel isn't painting a rosier picture for the future. Their estimate is $70 billion cost by the end of 2025.
Yeah, ouch. What's important to remember here is this isn't just about abstract financial figures. TASAM's analysis really digs into the human impact, especially on key sectors of the Israeli economy.
Like dominoes falling one after the other. What stood out to you?
Tourism, for one, took a huge hit. You know, when a country's perceived as unsafe, vacationers tend to stay away. And then there's agriculture. They give this example of 7,000 Thai workers fleeing Israel due to safety concerns that kind of labor shortage ripples through an entire industry.
And it makes total sense. Who's going to stick around to pick fruit if they're worried about missiles raining down? It's a harsh reality check that even sectors you might not immediately think of are deeply affected by conflict.
Exactly, and that's not even touching on international investment, which has also been significantly impacted when there's instability and uncertainty. Investors get spooked. It's natural.
So we're talking about this ripple effect going way beyond just the immediate military actions. It's economic shockwaves hitting tourism, agriculture investments, really impacting the lives of everyday people.
It makes you think twice about the true cost of conflict, doesn't it? And it's not just contained to one country or region anymore, this kind of economic fallout. It's a global phenomenon now with those interconnected markets you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's a bit daunting when you look at the big picture like that. So we've covered a lot of ground here. We started with that Turkish Wikipedia article, dove into global reactions and some potential tension with the U.S., and landed on these stark economic realities. What's the biggest takeaway for you looking at all this together?
For me, it's the sheer complexity of it all. This wasn't just a straightforward attack and response. It exposed fault lines and global alliances, triggered ethical debates about modern warfare, and highlighted the interconnectedness of our world, especially when it comes to economics.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And for you listening, here's something to consider. While these sources give us a solid understanding of the April 2024 attacks and their immediate aftermath, they also leave us with a big question mark hanging in the air. How might this event reshape the Middle East in the long term? Will we see further escalation, or could this be a catalyst for some kind of diplomatic solution? It's messy, it's complicated, but that's where the real learning begins, digging deeper, questioning, and forming your own conclusions.
Well said, and who knows, maybe the answers will be found in another fascinating deep dive somewhere down the line.
You never know. This is the Deep Dive signing off for today. Keep those brains buzzing out there.